In this video, we're going to be editing a sunset shot in Luminar AI, and we're going to be looking at how just by subtle changes and tweaks can yield big results. Let's dive right in. Okay, for this one, I'm going to go from Lightroom, and you can see the edits here. I've just turned down the highlights. This is a bracketed shot just to bring back out the sun here, and I've left the starburst in it as well. So I thought I would take it into Luminar AI just to see what it can do with this image. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do in Luminar AI is I'm going to use the accent, because that will help adjust the image for me and it'll help bring out some of the shadows as well, but I don't want to push it too far. I'm then going to get into the sky enhancer and just push that ever so slightly to help emphasize this lovely sky. Next thing, I'm going to get into structure AI, and I'm going to push that just a touch. Right, I don't want structure AI to affect my entire image, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it in certain areas, and as you see, the opacity is at 50%. The radius I'll take right down, and I'm just going to paint it into the areas I want to emphasize. And you'll see me jumping around the screen here with this. I don't want to emphasize every single area. I'm just playing with the light that was there and the textures that were there as well. And if I go in here as well, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the rest of the textures that are there. So I'm going to take the opacity down to 21, and I'm just going to paint in the remaining area of the grass. And while it's at 21, I'm also going to take the size back down, and I'm going to emphasize some of the clouds. Just there. Now I'm doing this entire image without using any luminosity masks. If I was editing this in Photoshop solely, I would be using luminosity masks to do it, but I'm trying to achieve a similar effect with Luminar AI. So I'll close that down, and then I'll jump into colour. And if you watch this channel, you'll know I'm not the biggest fan of blues in my images when it doesn't play a really important role. But for this, it was a sunset. The clouds were at a kind of medium level, enough to catch the sun with this. So I am going to adjust the blues, but I'm not going to adjust them too much. I'm actually just going to pull the saturation back slightly, just to around there, -14. I'm also going to play with the yellows. I'm going to push them slightly. That's actually too much for me. And the greens, I am going to pull back slightly. And you'll notice, but pulling back the greens, because there is a lot of yellow within the grass as well, it's helped emphasize the grass even further. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the details, and again I'm going to use a masking brush to do this. I'm going to push the small details just to about there. Go into the masking brush. Opacity 21 will be perfect for me. Take the radius down and just emphasize this area here. And then I'm going to go over most of the areas with the lighter grass. Now I'm doing this quite liberally. If you were editing similar images or images like that, I would actually take your time. I'm just doing this for the purposes of the video. And again, once again, because it's the small details, I'm going to take the radius up, and I'm going to paint in the rest of the grass. That way it just allows any detail or small details to be picked up throughout the entire image where I want them, but it also doesn't overemphasize certain areas. Quite happy with that. So the details are there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get into landscape, and yes, as you can see, it was the golden hour. So what we're going to do is we're going to push the golden hour, but again we're going to use a masking brush to do that. So I'm going to push the golden hour slightly, and you'll see how much that's emphasized this. Again, I don't want it on the entire area. Now I could copy masks doing this, but what I'm going to do is just I'm going to be selective in where I do this. It may seem very, very similar, but I am being selective when I'm doing this. I'm going to take this to 50. 49 will do, and I'm also going to take the radius down, and I'm just going to paint it there. So we've caught that slightly. I am then going to pick the odd area just around here, and the areas that I'm choosing are, in this case, 10, 20, 30 feet away from me, or in the case of the castle, that's quite a distance away, but I'm not emphasising areas down here. I want to keep this just with a subtle highlight. I could go over there as well, over there, perhaps down the clouds. Yep, that's worked slightly. No, it hasn't now that I see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and erase it from the clouds and just leave it in there quite subtle. Because what it did was it actually drew my eye to that. And to be honest, I may take it out even further so that it's definitely away. So these are the wee things that you'll see when you're editing your own images. Again, quite happy with that. Let's go for a before and after. So that's what we started with. And this is where we are now. Very, very short space of time. Okay, probably the final thing for this is I'm going to add an autumn effect. And if you think about the autumn effect, the glow happens in the lighter areas, not in the shadows. So again, we are going to use a masking brush to get this. So I'm going to push the autumn effect slightly. Could push it all the way. For me, that's too much. So I'm going to go about there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the masking brush and just paint it in certain areas. So if I paint it in there and in there, and I take my brush size down and I paint it in there. So you get the idea with this. Again, I am being quite liberal with this. I'm not really taking my time. If it was your image, I definitely would take your time doing this. Now there's some over here that I could add. So let's see how it looks when I add it. And I'll just paint through there. Right, now that's subtle when I'm doing that one. And it's just added a nice effect to that. So let's have a look at the before and after. So there's the before image and there's the after image. And you can see even by those subtle edits how much of a difference that has made to the entire image. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you got something from it as well. Remember, everybody's editing style is different, and for me, I prefer the subtle edits in most cases to get the images that I'm looking for. And with this image in particular, I wanted to stay true to the colour and the colours that were there and just add subtle changes just to bring out and emphasise the image. Now, it's not the greatest of images at all, but it was a fun one to edit. Thanks again for watching, and remember, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.